What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from the Scalar Learning channel. And today we are finally starting on our AB calculus journey. So what I'm going to do throughout the next several weeks leading up to the AP exam for AB calculus is I'm going to be releasing videos on the regular regarding AP calculus to help you guys get ready. So this is from the AB calculus review guide, and there's a bunch of multiple choice problems for part A and part B. So we're going to start here with part A, and these are all going to be questions that you have to answer without the use of a calculator. So I'm going to walk through each one of these and explain along the way as we go. And that's that. All right, so starting off with number one, this is a limit question. Now, you initially, when we're taking limits, the first thing you want to do is saying x approaches that value, what happens? Well, if you can just straight up plug in this value that it's approaching and get an answer, you're good. And if you don't, we'll evaluate from there. But let's plug it in step by step. So we got cosine of pi plus sine of 2 pi plus 1 on top. Again, just replacing each x with the pi, and on the bottom we have pi squared minus pi squared. So what we get here for cosine of pi is -1. Sine of 2 pi is 0, remembering the unit circle, and then we've got plus 1 on the top. And then we got pi squared minus pi squared on the bottom. -1 plus 1 is 0. We got 0 on the bottom. This is indeterminate, but when we have indeterminate for a limit, this is when we're allowed to use L'Hopital's rule. So L'Hopital's rule says that the limit of this is the same as the limit of this as x approaches pi of the derivative of the top and the derivative of the bottom. So we're allowed to do this now. So we're going to do that simultaneously. We're going to take the derivative of the bottom. Derivative of a constant goes to 0. Derivative of x squared is 2x. Now we're going to take the derivative of the top. Again, derivative of 1 goes to 0. Derivative of cosine is negative sine of x. Derivative of sine is cosine of x. But again, this is 2x, meaning we have to use the chain rule. So we take derivative of sine of 2x, which is cosine of 2x, times the derivative of the inner argument. The derivative of 2x, power rule, is 2. So I'm going to throw that in the front. And now we're going to plug in pi. So negative sine of pi. Well, again, sine of pi is 0. Cosine of 2 pi, right? As we plug in pi, it'd be 2 pi. Cosine of 2 pi is actually 1. 1 times 2 is 2 over 2 pi. This cancels out, right? And we're left with 1 over pi, which means B is the winner. Done. Question 2, another limit problem. Limit as x approaches infinity of this over this is what? So when we're talking about as x approaches infinity, it's almost what we consider end behavior. It's x gets super, super big. Where is this approaching? So when we're talking about end behavior, we really care only about these most significant terms, right? So I don't really care about that 1. I'm just going to focus on 9x to the 4th square root of that over, and I'm going to focus on x squared on the bottom. Now, when we take the square root of 9x to the 4th, we actually get 3x squared. And on the bottom, we have that x squared. So again, as x gets really, really big, these are going to actually be equivalent, and they're going to more or less cancel out. And what are we left with? We are left with 3. And that means 3 is the winner. Done. The graph of the piecewise defined function f is shown in the figure above. The graph has a vertical tangent, and x equals -2. And that makes sense, right? You can see it's straight vertical there. And a horizontal tangent lines is x equals -3 and x equals -1. That's because it's flattened out, right? Horizontal tangent line, slope of 0. Horizontal tangent line, slope of 0. What are all the values of x between -4 and 3, basically this entire domain at which f is continuous but not differentiable? So first of all, continuity essentially means that we can trace this without lifting our pen. So you can see right here, we have to lift our pen, and therefore there's a point of discontinuity right there. But that's the only point of discontinuity, which is at 0. The rest of it is continuous. Now, when we're talking about not differentiable, that would occur at a vertical tangent. That would also occur at these points, right? Where we have a sharp point meeting right there. So continuous but not differentiable would be at x equals -2 and x equals 1, which means C is the winner. Done. An ice sculpture in the form of a sphere melts in such a way that it maintains its spherical shape. The volume of the sphere is decreasing at a constant rate of 2 pi cubic meters per hour. At what rate in square meters per hour is the surface area of the sphere decreasing at the moment when the radius is 5 meters. So we're going to start with volume and surface area, and they give both of these formulas. So we're going to start with volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And since they give us this dv dt rate right here, the rate at which the volume is decreasing, it makes sense to take the derivative of this volume formula. So we're going to take it with respect to t. We got dv dt is equal to and then the derivative, we're going to use the power rule. So multiply the front by 3. 4/3 times 3 is 4 pi r squared times dr dt. Now, once you take the derivative, you might notice, wait a minute, we know this value, we know this value. What we're going to be solving for here is dr dt. And that's important because we're going to need dr dt when we go back and look at surface area. So we're going to plug and chug right here. Again, it's decreasing at a rate of 2 pi, which is the rate of change of the volume. So we're going to be plugging in that 2 pi or negative 2 pi in for dv dt. So we got negative 2 pi is equal to 4 pi, and then what's r here? This is when the radius is 5. So we're going to plug in 5. 5 squared is 25 times dr dt. And again, dr dt is what we're solving for. So 4 pi times 25 is 100 pi. So we have negative 2 pi equals 100 pi dr dt. Last but not least, we're going to divide both sides by 100 pi, and dr dt is equal to negative 2 pi over 100 pi. Pi's are going to cancel out. Negative 2 over 100 reduces to negative 1 over 50. So now we got dr dt. That's huge. Now let's take it back to that surface area formula that they give us. So we're going to say surface area is equal to 4 pi r squared. And now we want to find the rate at which the surface area of the sphere is decreasing, aka ds dt. So let's take the derivative with respect to t. ds dt is equal to, and then we're taking the derivative. So power rule, 2 times 4 is 8 pi r times dr dt. Now we're just going to plug and chug this in for dr dt and 5 in for the radius. So check this out. We're running out of room here, but we're going to do it up top here. So we got 8 pi, radius is 5, times dr dt, which is negative 1 over 50. And we're going to simplify. 8 times 5 is 40, times negative 1 over 50 is negative 40 over 50 pi, which reduces to negative 4/5 pi. But now you might say, wait a minute, there's no negative answers. Well, they say decreasing. So when they say decreasing, you don't have to include the negative. That implies that the value is negative. So if I said decreasing at a negative rate, that'd be like a double negative, and it would actually make it positive, which means that A is the winner. Done. Shown above is a slope field for which of the following differential equations. So what I like to do with the slope field is I like to take a look and look at different points. Like, for example, right here, this is when y is equal to, right, we have negative 3 down here, so it's about negative 1. So whenever y is equal to negative 1, regardless of the x, we're getting a slope of 0, a flat slope. And then also, whenever x is 0, regardless of the y, right, whenever x is 0, we're also getting a slope of 0 as well. And we'll get one other point that's kind of easy to graph. Right here is approximately 1, 1, right? 1 out, 1 up. And at that point, when we have a coordinate of 1, 1, it looks like the slope, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's definitely positive. Maybe it's like 2 or 1.5, something like that. But this gives us a decent idea. Now we're going to look back at these choices. So here, when I plug in 0 for x, I do get 0. When I plug in 0 for x, I get y. That's a problem because, again, it wouldn't, like the slope here, if I've got a y left over, it'd be 3. It wouldn't be flat, so we can eliminate b. Here, if I've got 0 for x, I'm getting a slope that's y plus 1. Again, that's wrong, right? I need a slope of 0. And then down here, if I plug in 0, I get 0 plus 1 squared, which is 1. That's out as well. Just for fun, we can look at some of these other ones. When I have negative 1 for y, no matter what, I should get 0. That makes sense because I get negative x plus x, which is equal to 0. Last but not least, we plug in 1, 1. And we do seem to get that 2. Again, that was an approximation, but 1 times 1 is 1 plus 1 is 2. A is definitely the winner. Done. Let f be the piecewise linear function defined above. Which of the following statements are true? So we've got 1 limit as h approaches 0 from the left is of this is f of 3 plus h minus f of 3 is over h is equal to 2. F of 3 plus h minus f of 3 over h is equal to 2 limit as h approaches 0 from the right. And option number 3 is f prime of 3 is equal to 2. Okay. So the main idea here is these are basically both calculating slope, right? F of x plus h minus f of x over h, limit as h approaches 0. And if both of these are true, this could be true. However, it also hinges on another point that this function is indeed continuous at 3. Now, right off the bat, you can see, right, for this piecewise, here to the left, it's 2x minus 2. To the right, it's 2x minus 4. I already know at when x is equal to 3, this is going to be 6 minus 2, which is 4. Here at x is equal to 3, it's going to be 6 minus 4, which is a y value or a function value of 2. This is not going to be continuous. It's going to look like this. So right off the bat, this derivative cannot exist at 3 because it's a jump discontinuity. Okay, so 3 cannot be true. Now, generally, this would give me that nice slope value. And I know both of these are linear equations. They both do have a slope of 2, but the problem with calculating 1, right, is it requires us to say f of 3 plus h minus f of 3. And the problem is that this is for every value less than 3. So we can't actually plug in and get a value for f of 3, which is why 1 is not going to work. But 2 is okay, right? We can find f of 3, which is going to be 2. F of 3 plus h minus f of 3 over h is indeed going to equal 2 because that's a slope, and we do see a slope of 2 because that's a linear equation, which means B is the winner. Done. If f of x equals the integral from 1 to x cubed of 1 over 1 plus ln of t dt for x is greater than or equal to 1, find f prime of 2. So here what we're doing is we're taking the derivative essentially of this function, which is an integral, which uses the fundamental theorem of calculus, which basically now says that this is simply, we taken this x cubed and we're plugging it in for t like so, right? So now this is going to give us 1 over 1 plus ln of x cubed. But don't forget our chain rule. This is also going to require us to multiply by the derivative of x cubed, which is 3x squared. So now this is what we have. And then with f prime of 2, we need to just plug in our 2 for x right here and right here. And what we have is 1 over 1 plus ln of 2 cubed, which is ln of 8 times 2 squared, which is 4 times 3, which is 12. And that is going to give us option D. That's how you do it. Done. Which of the following limits is equal to the integral from 3 to 5 of x to the 4th? So all of these are basically Riemann sum notation, as the number of rectangles basically goes to infinity. Now, what we should be multiplying everything by is the length of this interval divided by the number of rectangles, which are going to be infinite because of that limit. So it should be 5 minus 3 divided by n, which is 2. So I only see 2 for B and D, so we can eliminate A and C. Now next we're starting at 3. That's why all of these have a 3. Now whether or not it's k over n or 2k over n for this part depends on this interval, right? So we know that the interval is 2 over n. So whether or not it's k over n or 2k over n kind of depends on the interval. So what's happening is every time we add on to this iterator to k, we're taking another little fragment of this entire interval of 2, which is 2 over n, and that's going to be the length of each rectangle. So what we should be seeing inside is that 2 over n, and then times that k, which is going to be going from 1, 2, 3, 4 to infinity, which means D is the winner. Done. The function f is continuous for -4 to 4. The graph of f shown above consists of 5 line segments. What is the average value of f on this interval? So the way that I'm going to calculate average value here is I'm going to look at each of these 5 segments separately, and we are going to then multiply it by the length of each segment. So for example, here, the average value is 1/2, right, between 0 and 1. So it's 1/2 times a length of 1, right? It's gone across by 1. Plus, then we have this segment, and our average value is going to be right here in the middle, which is -1/2, and that spans across 1, 2, 3. Then we have this, which has an average value of negative 1/2 again, which spans only 1. Then we have this segment, which has an average value of 1 right in the middle, which spans 2. And last but not least, we have an average value of 1.5 or 3/2, which spans a length of 1 across. And now we can add these up and we'll get our answer. So we have 1/2 minus 3/2 minus 1/2 plus 2 plus 3 over 2. Negative 3 over 2 cancels out with 3 over 2. 1/2 cancels out with negative 1/2, and we're left with 2. So when we're trying to get average value of a function, the formula for average value is 1 over b minus a times the integral of the function from a to b. So the integral here is going to be the area between the curve and the x-axis. So let's first look at this area. So the blue regions are positive, the red regions are negative. So these two together, that's half and half. That's going to be an area of 1. Here we have a 2 by 2 triangle, which is going to give me an area of negative 2. This is a 1 by 2, which gives me an area of negative 1. Over here, we have another 2 by 2 right triangle, which gives me an area of 2. And then we have a half and 1, so another 1.5. So we're going to add all this up, and then we're going to multiply it by 1 over b minus a. So 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 1.5 is 4.5, and then we got negative 3 down there. So we're minusing 3, and we got 1.5, which is also equivalent to 3 over 2. And then we have to multiply this by 1 over b minus a. Now, b is the end of the interval, a is the beginning. So 1 over 4 minus 4, or 4 minus negative 4, excuse me, which turns into a positive, and that is 8. Last but not least, 1/8 times 3/2 is 3 over 16, which means b is the winner. Done. Let y equals f of t be a solution to the differential equation dy dt equals ky, where k is a constant. Values of f for selected values of t are given in the table above. Which of the following is an expression for f of t? All right, so first of all, the derivative has to be the original function with some constant k in front. Secondly, whatever the function is, these values, when you plug them in, right? If I plug in 0, I need to get 4. If I plug in 2, I need to get 12. So when you look at a, b, c, and d, all of them work for those values. So that doesn't help us to eliminate anything. But looking at this fact that the derivative is equal to the original function times some constant k, I can quickly eliminate c and d because the derivative of c is going to be 4t, right? That's not some constant times this original function. So that is out. Same with this one. The derivative here is just 4. So that's definitely not the original function times some constant. Now, if I'm looking at a and b, the problem with b is we have this 3 out here because when I take the derivative, that 3 is going to go to 0. So the derivative will have some constant multiplying this piece, but with the 3 going away completely, it's not the original y, the entirety of it times some constant. So it's got to be a, but now let's prove it. So again, a is equal to 4e to the t over 2 ln of 3. So really, all of this, that's a 1/2 times ln of 3. That's our constant, and it's times a variable. Now, the derivative of e to some variable is just e to some variable. Well, we have to apply the chain rule. So it's going to be 4e to the same thing we had here, and then the chain rule means we have to multiply by the derivative of the numerator, which is going to give us just this constant. So that's 1/2 ln of 3, and therefore the derivative of this is just this constant times the original function, which means a is the winner. Done.